people. Thought that I'd do a little video on bangs, scrapes, knocks and vibrations and clonks and clanks. If your car obviously suffers any of these symptoms, then chances are it could be one of these things. I'll just go through. I've got some bits and pieces of demonstration purposes. We'll start off with the suspension component first. Now, obviously, spring McPherson struts come all like assembled. This is a Mark II, but it's the same as a Mark I basically. Obviously, you have the shock absorber in the middle. Now, the one over there on my Mark II had collapsed, and it was giving like quite a boaty ride, but it shouldn't normally give any knocks or bangs when your shock absorbers are gone. The only bangs you'll get is obviously the bump stops come into contact when the spring does a full compress over a big bump or lump in the road. Broken springs can be another one that will cause knocks, bangs and scrapes, and you actually sometimes don't even know they're broken. Got the part of the bottom spring, it's not on this one, it's the one over there, but I've found in my experience of cars, they love to snap at the very bottom in the cup leg, and they'll snap. I'll show you probably on here, look, and they snap this there, they go around and they snap, and you don't actually sometimes see them because it's so much dirt and crap in there, you don't see it. So a good thing to do is to check, make sure your spring is all intact, the shock absorber has got its cover, is not leaking any fluid, etc. If it's leaking fluid, then on a assembled strut, in my experience, yes, you change the damper, but the spring ain't normally too far behind, and vice versa. If the spring snaps, chances are the shock absorber's had such a hiding because the spring snapped, you want to replace that as well. Now, another one that gets very overlooked a lot is actually the top mounts. These should actually, it's difficult for me to see, look, I can turn it. I've had it twisting, that's what I'm trying to do. See, very tight to do, but that should have play, and that's got actually ball bearings in this. These can actually smash to pieces, another common fault. So this will be bolted at the top of the car, inside up here, with the 1, 2, 3 bolts, and it can actually be literally doing this. It'll rattle around at the top because it's all shot, all the bearings. So in that case, you'll need a whole new assembly. Don't even bother replacing the top mount, unless of course you've got aftermarket springs and shocks. But nine times out of 10, if that's gone, I'd replace the whole unit. Next thing, anti-roll bar bushes that attach normally to about here on the vehicle. They sort of sit in there and they go to the anti-roll bar. The bush can actually collapse out in here. These S20 cameras aren't very good, I tell you that now. There we go. Can actually collapse in there, and how you'll know it, I mean, this one was good. Scrapyard jobs, they love cutting them off. You'll actually get like this is a normal movement, like the side to side. Phone's ringing, hang on. Sorry about that, people love ringing at the worst time, and that's a business. So anyway, yeah, they'll normally have a nut on the end of that, and this will then go backwards and forwards, it will rattle around. That's then completely shot. They're nylon-y plastic anyway, most 9 times out of 10 nowadays anyway, so that breaks up and they break. Next thing, control arm bushes, quite a very important job of the car, because it holds obviously the wishbone to the car. So you've got the wheel here, if you like, and it's attached with the drive shaft. And you've got the lower control arm. Well, it mounts in 2 places. If this back bush gets worn, it does this, if you imagine, which then does this to the wheel, makes it move and backwards and forwards. Normally you'll get the when they're gone, when you hit like a little bump, they what that is, sorry, the stupid little sound effects, is you can look and you think, oh well, yeah, it looks alright, but what actually happens over time is the metal inside actually fatigues and starts wearing away, which in very, very slightly thou of a mil starts allowing the bush to sort of move a bit more and a bit more and a bit more and a bit more and a bit more, and obviously that wears the metal away, and then you've got like this on your lower control arm. These can be an arsehole to get off. I normally always, you're supposed to use this by press. I've never had, I've done loads. Just a simple cut, knock that off. Simple inner cut as well, on because these are cast and rubber, so you've got bits of cast crap metal, monkey metal as I call it. You just bust them out the way, and you actually get down to the, where did I cut through? Yeah, to the main tube, and very slightly cut through that. Knock that off, clean up the lower control arm and refit and replace a new bush. They are an arsehole to do without a press, but you can do it with a vice. Take the whole lower control arm off and then bash a new one on. Next thing can give you massive engine mounts, vibrations. Engine mounts, very easily overlooked, but very, very important. Both are actually hydro. I believe this one's hydro. Yeah, both are hydro mounts. Now this is basically, is that an ST170? No, it's not. This is a Mondeo 18 2 litre. I can't remember. I think it's a 2 litre. Mondeo 2 litre mount. Mark II focused 2 litre TDI engine. It's the Peugeot engine, top mount. Similar to the Focus ST170 engine mount, but you can see ours are further apart than the closeness of this and this. These are normally filled with, well, these are on ours and ST170, these are filled with actually an oil. So what the job of this is to do is to, when you hit bumps, and obviously when you take off from neutral to first and reverse, it's just to help dampen the movement. Well, these actually fracture, they start leaking, and then before you know it, this actual whole unit will move. Look, this is my foot holding it. It's hard to look. Can you see that? Well, that starts smashing into the side. It'll cause all sorts of knocking and banging and problem. That's the same as well. They do have a gearbox mount, but very, very unusual. I've known vehicles normally to fail on the gearbox mount. The mount that also fails and will give you all this banging and knocking on acceleration and deacceleration is the dog mount, which they will always be seized if it's never been replaced. I can tell you that now. The bolt underneath that holds the engine to the vehicle to stop the engine swinging from the bottom, so to speak, that is another notorious bush that wears out and will cause that, but it will be seized. It will always be seized. I've never well, actually this one was undone, but it was seized and I got it out. If you get it out without snapping, because I've snapped loads, because they do, it's a 50-50. When you get it out, and if you're lucky, copper slip the fuck out of it, for God's sake. Other than that, wheels can give you an imbalance, and tyres, believe it or not. Got the rust on my disc after a couple of days. The tyres, if you haven't actually got good tyres, believe it or not, I've seen that on cars where my mate, he had a bit of a naughty chase one day and he come back and he said, oh yeah mate, my wheels are fucked. I go, what do you mean? I took his car down the road and that was like all, you know, the whole car was juddering and he thought it was this and that. And it turns out it was the tyres. It was actually the tyres, where he'd obviously got them so hot from going so quick. He deformed the tyre and actually caused a misshape on the tyre, which will, you know, basically they used to call it carbuncled in the old days of the tyres. And obviously, of course, the wheels as well. If you've hit a pothole, you can put a flat spot in the rim, buckle the rim, which will, you'll know as soon as you go take the wheel off and balance it anyway, you'll see that. So I'm looking more at the component sides. The steering rack won't normally give you any of that issues. The steering rack will be the traditional, you get in at knock 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 knock, what they hear. Quite often not, you can get away with actually adjusting There's a special preload nut underneath on the rack that you can take that knock out. Everyone tries and changes the racks. Don't even bother. Why? Just do the nut, and the job's good. And steering rack shouldn't wear out on these vehicles anyway. For at least 150,000. I've never known a Ford vehicle really to have a collapsed steering rack and that. Yes, you get collapsed occasionally inner tie rods, but even then, as soon as you take the wheel off, you'll know if they're gone. If you can get hold of the thing and it's going ding 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 ding, there's a problem. But normally I would check that first. Alright peeps.